A majority government for Stephen Harper would be one of the most negative political events in Canadian history. Stephen Harper's own campaign literature, distributed in this province, proclaimed, "There is no greater fraud than a promise not kept." He used these words as he successfully attempted to woo voters from our province to not vote for the opposing party. Naively, we trusted him. He rewarded that trust with a broken promise. According to his own brochure, Stephen Harper is a fraud. I think you all know my views on this issue, and I firmly believe that Newfoundlanders and Labradorians at home and abroad still feel the cold, sharp sting of betrayal at the hands of our country's leader. Other commitments were also made by Stephen Harper that were not kept. We all know that these promises are sadly not worth the paper they were written on, or the bond of his word is meaningless. American actress Katharine Hepburn once said, quote, "To keep your character intact, you cannot stoop to filthy acts. It makes it easier to stoop the next time." I believe that those words hold a dire warning for all Canadians. If Harper is prepared to slash program spending when he has large surpluses and break his written word as a leader of a minority government, the future for Newfoundlanders and Labradorians, and indeed all Canadians, will be very bleak under a Conservative majority. Do not let Stephen Harper turn your focus onto a green shift in his attempt to turn your focus away from a Conservative blue shaft, because that's what will happen. His list of broken and unfulfilled promises portrays a lack of integrity in his character and shows us that he truly cannot be trusted. This is a federal government willing not only to break their own promises, but they go so far as to break their own laws and call an election even though they mandated fixed election dates. There is nothing Harper will not do in order to win a majority government. This, ladies and gentlemen, is a party who purportedly offered a terminally ill MP a life insurance policy to get his vote. How low can you go? This is a man who wants an election before losing by-elections in progress that would have been closed later this month. This is a man who wants an election before the economy declines any further due to his fiscal mismanagement. This is a man who wants an election before findings are released on various ethical breaches against his government. Given his handling of equalization, who can trust the Prime Minister anyway? For the man occupying the highest office in our country to treat a province in the Federation with such disdain. If Stephen Harper gets a majority government, I remind you of the words of Bachman Turner Overdrive. You ain't seen nothing yet. Stephen Harper's ideology has been cleverly hidden and implemented quietly as much as possible in the past 5 years. And I'd encourage you, read some of his past writings. Go back 10 years, read some of the books, read some of the statements that he's made, and see where that stands with the person now and the person that was there back in the 90s. The only reason we haven't seen his full plan for Canada implemented is because he had a minority government to keep him in check. I can only say this, and I say it with all sincerity and genuine concern for our great country. A majority government for Stephen Harper would be one of the most negative political events in Canadian history. Even without a majority, he has cut funding for minorities, cut funding for literacy, cut funding to students, volunteers, museums, and arts and culture groups right across the country. His government cut funding to women's groups, and in fact, his government actually went so far as to remove the federal mandate to advance equality for women. This all happened under a minority government. What in heaven's name will happen if he gets a majority? And make no mistake, you won't hear Stephen Harper admit that he may win a majority government because he's terrified that people might actually stop and think about the consequences of that happening. Well, I beg you, and I plead with you all today, stop, think, and decide if that is what this country deserves. When we vote, I would rather that we stand on the solid ground of principles than on the shaky ground of broken promises. If you believe that the country deserves better, then you know what to do. It's as easy as A, B, C.
Scarred by cancer and now hurt by what she sees as Lisa Raitt's insensitivity.
It's an insult to us. My body is totally destroyed because of it.
Marcilla Tardif voted Conservative in the past, but not again. Not after Raitt was caught on tape saying the isotope crisis is sexy.
Now she's talking about us like oh, it's sexy, hey, I'm going to build my career on this.
Survivor Rita Benak leads a thyroid cancer support group that's outraged as well.
Some of us have smaller scars and some of us have scars from ear to ear. And I can assure you that those patients don't feel very sexy.
On tape, Raitt says she hopes to get a career boost from the medical crisis.
When we win on this, we get all the credit. Yeah. I'm willing to roll the dice on this.
There's nothing sexy about losing a family member to cancer. Why won't this minister resign?
How will the Prime Minister explain the comments of his minister, not to this House, but to a woman who's been diagnosed with breast cancer?
The Prime Minister didn't answer that question, but insisted Raitt is working long hours to solve the isotope shortage caused by a reactor shutdown.
That's what the minister is doing. That's what this government is doing, not playing cheap politics.
The cheapest politics there is to call a crisis a career opportunity.
The embattled minister refused to apologize, instead lashing out at her tormentors.
The only people who are interested in political opportunism is the opposition.
What the hell is wrong with these people?
And that's what cancer survivors are asking too.
Any minister who calls a situation like this sexy certainly does not have my confidence.
The Prime Minister's office says Raitt is sympathetic to cancer patients, having lost her father and her brother to the disease. Robert Fife, CTV News, Ottawa.